with Sharon Celine, one of some of my people that I've known for a while, and I've had on TIFOS for a while. It's fun to have you here. Had a great little pre-interview. What are parents going to be learning from you today?
Sure. So we're going to be doing, we're going to try to make sense of ADHD using brain-based tools because we want to make sure that not only do they thrive at home, but also at school. So I'm going to be giving some tools for executive function, emotional regulation, actionable steps to help your child at home and collaborate at school as well.
And for parents who are brand new to you and your work, when you're giving sort of a quick intro and they say, what do you do? What's your job? I don't get it. How might you respond?
Yeah, so I help people gain the tools and accountability to thrive and feel empowered with their ADHD, work with all age groups, and basically just a little bit about me. I have a background in special education. I was a special education teacher and administrator, and I felt like we needed more help for the children, right? We needed more targeted intervention. So I moved over to ADHD coaching, not knowing I had ADHD, and ironically worked with students, then saw the impact in adults and just making sure that students don't get to adulthood and carry all that shame and trauma that so many adults with ADHD do, not getting the right tools to manage their ADHD. So we help ADHDers throughout the age range make sure that they get the tools that they can thrive.
And before we dive in, I have two questions for you based on what we were just talking about. One is about the shame. So in the pre-interview, you mentioned that and you mentioned it again. Why is that so personal to you, if you care to share?
Yeah, so I carry a lot of shame. I was misdiagnosed. I had an auditory processing disorder that I was receiving speech for when I was a child. I got bullied from age 8 to 35. Some of it was because I know that's heavy, right? Some of it was unmanaged ADHD. A lot of it was victimhood, right? Not knowing how to stand up for myself, but I didn't understand myself for so long. And if children can understand the way that their brain works, the way that they show up for themselves and others, their strengths, their weaknesses, their values, and lean into that at an earlier age while their executive functions are developing rather than focusing on the negatives, there's so much that they can overcome before they become adults and look back and think about the trauma that goes on, whether it be bullying or substance abuse or failed relationships. So why not give them the chance now rather than wait till they're 30, 40, 50, 60?
I'm taking a note here that I want to ask you about later. Yeah, I'm guessing you probably get the same question, but parents will often ask, when should we start? And my answer is always as soon as possible. The more proactive, the better, for reasons like what you just mentioned. Do you get that question a lot as well?
Yeah, I think to work directly with a student and a coach, it would be 8. But if you as a parent are working with them, you can start at any time. It's in your language, it's in your routines, it's in the communication with the school, it's in how you're showing up for yourself, right? Not just for your children. So yes, you can start at any time as a parent. It is a tough job, especially when you have a neurodivergent child, but it's never too early to start.
And then my last question based on some things you just said is I noticed that as you're very particular with your words, and one thing that you used was the word accountability when describing what you do. And I don't usually hear people say that while they're describing what they do, but why did you use that word in describing that? Why is that so important in your approach?
Because
am I picking that up correctly?
Oh, you're picking up what I put down,
okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So of course we have intrinsic motivation, but there are plenty of things with an ADHD brain that we don't want to be doing or we don't have the activation for, so we don't have the ability to get started. So it is so important to have that accountability for the extrinsic things that aren't internally motivating, to just put one step forward and get healthy habits and routines started. So yes, we do need that extra layer of accountability, more so than a neurotypical. And without that, it's really hard to get routines set. It's usually that 4-week mark, right, where a child or an adult is like, yeah, I got this, right? Like I can do this on my own, I'm thriving, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like the stock market. You're going up 4 weeks in, you just crash, right? But that's really where that accountability needs to happen to push you forward and get you so much more actionable as a person with ADHD. So yes, accountability is huge. Even micro check-ins are huge just to get you on the right path and keep you as persistent in your consistency.
I absolutely would not be where I'm at today with my ADHD and accountability. That is like one of my secret weapons for sure. I still use it exactly what you said for the things that I can't. I forget what you use for the term self-starting or activation. But
activating, yeah.
Activating. The motivation. And I talk about my shtick is like when parents ask about motivation, I'm like, I don't talk to kids about motivation. The question is really, how do you do the thing that you need to do when you're not motivated to do it? That's
and then
my
motivation
question.
Comes. Exactly.
If it ever does. I mean,
if it comes,
my taxes, I don't think it's ever come, but I do them because of accountability. But
that's one thing that parents are going to learn, the motivation formula, or the momentum formula, I should say.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Well, let's dive in. Making sense of ADHD, brain-based tools to help your child thrive at home and in school. Where do we start?
Awesome. So I'm going to share because, like Seth, I was a former teacher, so I love sharing visuals. And I think as ADHDers, right, the more multimodality we have, the better we can learn things. So can you see my screen?
Not yet. There we go. It's popping up. Got it.
All right. So yes, we're going to make sense of ADHD brain-based tools in school and at home. You already know enough about me, but just one thing I didn't mention is I'm also a mom of a 3-year-old with hyperactive ADHD symptoms, 2 neurodivergent sons, 12 and 14, a husband who has neurodivergences. So we are one big neurodivergent household. So this topic is not only personal to me in my family, but it's also important to me professionally. So in both ways. So just wanted to quickly go into the neuroscience, and I see that it's not showing everything on here, but that's okay. So executive function lives in the brain's prefrontal cortex. It controls the planning, organization, time management, emotional regulation, all the skills that our kids struggle with, right? And in ADHD, the area matures up to 30% later. So if you have a 10-year-old with ADHD, instead of saying, why doesn't he do X like a 10-year-old? Perhaps you might say, he is showing up like a 7-year-old. I should expect him to perform with his executive functions like a 7-year-old. So we have to reframe the way that we think about our kids with a 30% delay in executive functions. Oh, there we go. Also, and I'm going to get into the tools in just a little bit, but the brains, we know, run on dopamine, and we have a lower baseline of dopamine. So if a task isn't interesting or rewarding, it literally doesn't activate or start, as we were talking about. So we know it's not willpower, it's biology. So just have a little fun motivation matrix there that talks about what happens when there's high urgency and there's low interest. So
can you talk about that just for a moment?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. So there's a lot of experts out there like William Dodson who talks about urgency, novelty, challenge, interest, right? So ICNU. And that is when the ADHD brain itself is more motivated to do something. But if there isn't urgency, if there isn't interest, if there isn't novelty, if there isn't challenge, then they're not as interested and they might hypo-focus. They might be repulsed from doing the thing and they literally just can't do it because their dopamine isn't firing at that point. I also say that you have to have belief and you also have to see opportunity. So I call it bounce, belief, opportunity, urgency, novelty, challenge, and excitement. So that is how the ADHD brain generally gets motivated to do something.
And what do you mean by
In the thing, like you value it.
like buy-in?
Yeah, buy-in, exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So then when we're stressed, especially as students, our executive functions shut down, right? But if we have predictability,